Good evening. Welcome to the QCIS channel. We're on this channel. You get a daily dose of science, technology, engineering, and math. My name is Leon Jones. And this evening, we're going to get right back into the fundamentals of engineering examination. And I'm going to talk about the specifications. But before I get into the specifications, I just want to tell you what the fundamentals of engineering examination is. Now, I've taken it before and I'm looking to pass it. I've taken three different ones. And I will tell you, I'm not the best test taker in the world, but there are tricks that can help you. Now, the exam is basically, I call it a general knowledge examination. And that's based on just about everything that you took in 4 years. Now, it used to be a long time ago when you took the fundamentals of engineering examination, there were actually 180 questions. In the morning, everybody took the same general subjects: mathematics, engineering economics, statics, dynamics, mechanics of materials, chemistry. I also believe electrical circuits, fluid mechanics, thermodynamics. And then in the afternoon, that's when the disciplines were actually separated. Now, the general was basically, now they call it the other disciplines, but the general was a harder version of what you took the one in the morning. Now, the way they scored the exam in the past is you had 120 points for the morning section, and you had 60 questions worth 2 points for the afternoon section. So that means if you got, let's say, 50%, you get 120 out of 240 points. And the exam used to be 8 hours. This is when it was with pencil and paper. Also, you had what we call a reference manual. You still have the reference manual, but then you were allowed to carry the reference manual into the classroom wherever you were going to take a test. Because in the past, prior to 2015, the tests, again, were pencil and paper. Now the tests are at a testing center. Everything is computerized. Now, I'll be honest with you, I do not like the computerized test. I prefer taking the handbook in there, looking everything up. Now, you couldn't tab the handbook out, but you still had to know where everything was. And that was much faster. Now, you have control F with the computerized exam. Well, if I didn't know where everything was, the trick that I knew my pages, so I could just fold my pages wherever the information was. So I could look in the index, like if I wanted some conversion factors and I couldn't find them, or I would look in the table of contents or contents. That's what it is. The table of contents would tell me where everything is. Now, again, the reference manual is part of what you need to get through the examination. Now, with the computerized format, the reference manual was there. Now, in the past, you still had calculators. You could take two calculators in. Now, you're only allowed to take one calculator in. Everything is in the computer. Control F. You have to learn how to search everything. Now, is everything in the manual? No. Now, I've come across many individuals who have passed the exam and are giving you their version on how to pass the exam. It's great. Everybody has a different learning style. Now, the exam is a standardized test. It is the first test that you will need prior to engineering licensing. And then after that, you would get your work experience to take your PE. Now, Believe it or not, the PE was an exam that you could take reference materials in where you're going to take a test. That's no longer allowed because all of the PE exams now, I believe, are also on computer. So the reference manual doesn't go away. You still have to learn how to search for all of the materials. Now, again, the FE is what we call a fundamentals of engineering examination. It's just, it gives you broad knowledge. NCEES is the one that really delivers the fundamentals of engineering. Now, they tend to update their materials every 6 years. Now, believe it or not, there is a new reference manual out. It's coming the week after next. It's the reference handbook 10.4. Now, what we're using now is 10.3. Now, for the fundamentals of engineering examination, there are a lot of prep materials. I'm going to take the environmental. This is what I use right here. Now, just because it says FE on it, and there are some errors in this book because I looked at them. This gives you overall, gives you some things that you're going to expect. But this is a decent book, but everything that is on the examination isn't in that book. So, that being said, as we break down the study specifications of what you're really going to need for the examination, because again, with so many of these schools, like the School of PE, Prep FE, now I'm going to tell you the two best that I've actually found better, and this is just my opinion. You need to go check out Direct Hub with Farouk and check out Kenza's channel. I mean, I didn't know anything about statics until I saw how she broke everything down. And of course, Farouk broke everything down too. They actually make studying fun. And when you hear them talk, particularly if you're a minority student, they actually believe in you. There's somebody out there named Ren, who I have talked to about the FE examination too. They don't want you to fail. They want you to succeed because there are a lot of people out there who are jealous of you. They don't want you to pass it. But Farouk and Kenza, they will go out their way to help you pass the fundamentals of engineering examination. There was somebody up there, I believe her name was Tanisha. She failed it 11 times and she passed it. And, I know I gave up on it a few times. And that was my problem. I'm taking it every 4 years. And believe it, when you're out of school, even when you go into the workforce, you have a family, you forget a lot of the material. Now, again, it's a standardized test, just like the ACT, the SAT, all these tests. Now, there are specifications, and I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to go over some specifications. Let me go into the one that I'm going to take. I'm going to be taking the fundamentals of engineering examination for the environmental. Now, this right here that you're looking at, and I'll get into a few of the others in a moment. This is the bread and butter right here. This is the outline. And it's a good outline, and you can go into NCEES, set up an account. This tells you, because the new exam is no longer 180 questions, it's 110 questions. It's no longer 8 hours, it's 6 hours or 5 hours and 20 minutes. and it's still a closed book examination. Now, most of the people who are in mechanical or civil, they're going to be taking this exam. Now, you don't have as many in electrical, industrial. You don't have as many people in chemical. You don't have as many people taking the exam, but they have students who will sit down and take this exam. Now, talking about the specifications right here, this is the specification that I utilize. Now, let me tell you why it's a good specification, because it breaks down the different subjects that you need. This is the specs right here. Now, for the environmental, and this is going to actually tell you what you're going to study. So when you pick up something like this, you don't have to go through everything in that book because it's not going to be on an exam. See, one of the good things about this specification, it gives you an idea of what you need to study. Now, is there memorization involved? Absolutely. I'd like to remember that 8.34 pounds is a gallon and 7.45 pounds, or is it 7.45 gallons is a cubic foot, something like that. I like to remember the flow rate, Q equals VA. I like to know that Q is going to be in cubic feet per second. I like to know my units. I like to know kilograms, meters per second is a Newton. Because one thing that you must understand when you take this examination, conversion factors, they can throw the whole problem off. This is why some things you need to memorize, because you might not have time to go into that book. It's just like Pythagorean theorem. Now, with Pythagorean theorem, you're dealing with a right triangle. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. And if you have a trigonometric identity, what equals 1? Sine squared theta plus cosine squared theta equals 1. You're going to have things that you can remember right off the bat. Now, if you're taking statics, now I had to really look at it myself. And once I saw enough problems, I said, why do we want everything to equal 0? Well, if it equals 0, that means the forces are really canceling each other out. Now, this is how I think. I think more conceptually than theoretically. And that's what helps me learn, because I'm looking at the situation from my work experience. But let's get back on to the specifications. Now, for me or anybody else who's taking the environmental CBT, you have 15 subjects. Now, you're going to have your amount of questions, 5 to 8 on your mathematics. Now, this is good because if you have one of these, it's a calculator. And this is one that is for the test. Now, I don't like this one. This is the TI 30. The one that's the best one is the TI 36X Pro. I can go in there and do a problem, and if I don't even know what X is, it'll solve for X for me. Now, there's some other tricks I'm going to tell you about the calculator in the future, but when we get into the specifications, you look at the specifications. There's mathematics, probability and statistics. Tells you how many problems. It tells you what you need to study. Engineering economics. Now, I will tell you, I call this part right here your general information. You get a lot of those right. And then we deal with your fundamentals, the population. where you have a lot of questions. Now, when you take this test, you answer what you know. Most of the problems, they want you to do them in just under 3 minutes. If you don't know it, flag it and come back to it later. 110 questions. You're going to have to guess on some, and don't second guess yourself unless you're absolutely sure that you can come up with proof that the first answer that you put down was incorrect. Now, again, you look at all the subjects like mathematics on your specifications, probability and statistics, ethics, engineering, economics, fundamental principles, everything that if you want to take the FE examination for environmental, this is what you're going to have to know. Again, if you enjoy what you're doing, I mean, it's a test. And you know what I learned? Fail it, get right back up. It's not the end of the world. In fact, sometimes it's good to actually see what's on the test, and it'll motivate you to come in and do better. But you want to pass it the first time. But there are a number of people who don't pass it the first time. Now, the pass rate for the FE examination in 2024, I saw from the Miami Herald, it was right around 66%. So if you understand this, it's gotten a little harder. And CEES is going to have to do something about that. I mean, you want people to pass the exam, don't make it to where people can't pass it. It's supposed to be a fundamentals examination. Now, of course, I don't expect you to have NCEES give you the answers, but bottom line, maybe increase the time instead of 6 hours, maybe go back to 8 hours or even 7. It's a tough exam if you've been out of school for a while. But look at the outline of what you have to take. Again, this is environmental. Now, I'm gonna go bring up some other ones too. Let me go and bring up, let's see, more FE specifications. Let me see. Okay. Here's the one for civil. Now, most of the people, now why did I bring up civil? Civil and mechanical are going to have most students who have to take this examination. Now, if you look at the civil exam, really have to tighten up on your math. Now, what's different with this specification than the environmental specification is, okay, statistics is included with your math. There's no chemistry on this one. Now, this one has engineering economics, whereas the FE environmental, there's no statics. You got to know your statics. You also have to know dynamics. Now, in civil, dynamics really wasn't a necessity because you're not developing or designing any product that actually moves. Everything is static. Now, you are going to need dynamics for mechanical engineering. Now, you have mechanics of materials. You have your regular materials. This is all your civil. And then now, one aspect I will tell you about the civil, if you're going to go and actually take your surveying exam, some of this information from the civil in the surveying section is actually going to be on the FS exam for surveying. Now, something else you need to know too. We deal with water resources and environmental engineering. Guess what? The same information right here. And it's funny because with water resources and environmental engineering, there are a heck of a lot of problems that you need to know. Now, going back, I'm going to say your math, your ethics, your engineering economics, your statics, dynamics, that's what I call your general information. You start to get into your core subjects when you get down to your materials, your surveying, and as you get down to your main subjects here, that's when you have more problems. Geotechnical, transportation, construction engineering. Now, you have to look at how many subjects you have too. For the environmental, you have 15 subjects. For the civil, you have 14. But regardless, when you look at the specifications, they're all designed the same way, just different subject matter. And this is all coming from the 2020 examinations. Now, again, the specifications, they're basically an outline. And once you understand the outline, that's what you study for. And then you go and do different problems. But I'm going to get into studying when I sum everything up too, because even myself, I get tripped up on studying as well. Now, we're going to get into the mechanical. Mechanical, you have less math, less engineering economics. But now with mechanical, this is when you start to go into your electricity and magnetism. You don't have that on civil, but you still have statics. Now, you look at mechanical. With civil, you only had 4 to 6 questions on dynamics. But look here for dynamics. You got 10 to 15 problems. You still have statics, and you still have mechanics and materials. But you have a heck of a lot of dynamics. And then you get into material properties. So if you took a material science class, you're going to understand ferrous metals, ceramics. You're going to understand non-ferrous metals, polymers. You're going to have to understand thermal failure, fatigue, that kind of information. That you're dealing with materials, properties, and processing. And guess what else when it comes to mechanical? You're also going to deal with fluid mechanics. A lot of problems with fluid mechanics. Thermodynamics. You're going to deal with power cycles. You're going to deal with heat. These are essential for subjects like HVAC. You're going to deal with convection, radiation. This right here is going to tell you what you have to study. And it gives you a perfect outline. 14 subjects. Now there are other ones out there. Let me see if I can find some other ones out here. Now, getting back to everything, so I can cut this off now. When we deal with the fundamentals of engineering examination, if you're not a good a test taker, what do? Because I'm not the best test taker. So here's what I do. I read the question, get everything that I know about that question. There's the given and there's what's needed. and you try to solve the problem that way. I believe with my problem is I overthink the problem. And I make the problem harder than what it is. And when you're spending too long on a problem, and you think that 6 hours doesn't go by quickly. It does. By the time you are on problem 55, you sucked up a lot of time. This is why you have to have strategies. Now, I've shown you some specifications, and a good strategy is what you don't know, you flag. Do everything you know, and this is common sense. Now, there's something that I call process of elimination as well. And let me give you an example. If I have to balance an equation, say I don't know what that equation is right off, I'm gonna flag that equation that I have to balance. I'm gonna go through and do every question that I know. Now, when I come back to that equation, I'm gonna look at the four answers. Now, this is called process of elimination if you don't know the answer. This is my way of guessing. So I'm given this problem. I'd say, okay, I have the four answers here. So I'm going to take each answer. I have to balance the equations and look at how many electrons or protons on each side. See what I have to do. And I'm going to eliminate some answers. And it's the same thing when I have to find an answer that deals with X. The calculator will solve a lot for you too, especially with your mathematics. And if you get into some formulas, now there are some conversion factors in your calculator as well. Maybe not to the depth of what the test is, but you're going to get your centimeters, your inches, you're going to get your meters, seconds. I know the calculator has about 40, 50 different conversion factors, but I just believe you should know some of the conversion factors yourself, like 1 acre equals 43,560 feet. And you know if your problem is right by looking at your units. Like if I'm doing molarity problems, I may start off with a mass of oxygen and I want to find the moles of oxygen. So, you know, in a denominator, you're going to make everything cancel out. See, these are test taking strategies that I just figured out. And then if you know how to skillfully look into that manual, you can find the equation. Now, that equation might not exactly have the variable that you're looking for. However, you can find that variable within that equation. Now, again, it's a reference book. So every equation is not going to be in that reference book, but a number of them are. And you have to know how to manipulate the formulas. And that's the biggest thing. You cannot waste a lot of time. And one thing about tests, I always say colleges, when you're an engineer or engineering technology, everything is accredited by ABET. Well, the bottom line is maybe I'll start teaching a little bit more toward the test so people can pass it. That's what they should start doing, because in the textbook, even in 4 years, you're not going to ever finish the textbooks. The instructors are going to give you the problems they want you to do. That's the problem with college. If I had a class and I was teaching it, teach it the way the questions are going to be framed on the FE exam. That way, while you're still in school, you know how to you know what the question says, and you can. It's much easier for you to answer. Like engineering economics. Many of us only take one course of engineering economics. That's it. And I don't care how long you've been in school, you're going to forget engineering economics. Why? Because you don't use it. Teach it. Start making the curriculum align with the FE examination. And I also believe if you do that, you're going to have better engineers. I mean, if you want some more advanced material, have them go get a master's degree. That's what ABET ought to do. I mean, everything, ABET is a programmatic accreditation. They come in and check your program to see if it aligns with what they want it to align to. It's a lot of money to accredit your programs. But ABET's based in Baltimore. But again, with the examination here, going back to that, understand those specifications. Read them over and over and over again, and then practice problems. Now, I know people go out and buy the Michael Lindberg books. Here's what I'm going to say about the Michael Lindberg books. You want to practice problems, but you want to deal with the problems that are on the test or close. So download the NCEES practice examination. Has 100 questions, but it's giving you the idea of what kinds of questions are on the test. Now, if you have two monitors, you can actually put a version of the handbook on one monitor, and you can do the test. Get yourself some of that. Get yourself a marker. You can't use scratch paper, so emulate taking an exam. Time yourself, but you want to start off getting familiar with the problems, even if it takes you 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 minutes. Try to get as many as you can out of the way. That's what I've been doing. Some things you may have to relearn again. I mean, learning is beautiful, but you have to be motivated to do it. Understand the test. Understand this as well. If you don't get it the first time, try again. The difference between people who are successful and the ones who aren't, the ones who are successful will take the risk. And guess what? When you take the risk, you're going to be rewarded at the end. If you don't take a risk, you're never going to be rewarded. But you're always going to envy the person that took the risk while you cowered out. Don't ever be a coward. Take it again. The test. Again, you had one person who took it 11 times. It's a lot of money that person spent, but you know what? They never gave up. And that's why, some other sources besides Anthem, and I'm talking about the environmental right now. Anthem, there's another book that you get from PP2Pass, PPI2Pass. There's also Dr. Islam, 800 Problems in Civil. If you're lucky, you can find some of that information from Reddit free. I've downloaded a lot of information free. In fact, for the conceptual questions, Quizlet. A lot of information from Quizlet, where the conceptual questions for the environmental could be right there. You want to make sure you know how to do the conceptual questions, because a portion of the test I have some of those problems on there. If you can get most of those problems right, you're on your way. Everything's not going to be calculation based like it used to be. Also, when you're doing a test, get enough sleep. You can put a lot into studying, but you have to have enough sleep. Make sure you stretch, like to stretch, because you're going to be sitting down there 5.5 hours, and you're going to be sore, or 2 hours before you take a break. 25 minutes is not a long break. Get right back in there and take it again. You have to set yourself up to understand you're gonna you're gonna be drained mentally and physically after the test. But is it worth it? It's just like football practice. The reason why you don't have a lot of successful football players is the regiment they have to go through. Oh, that's the same thing with this test. So you have a number of people who go to school and get engineering degrees, but you don't have a number of them who are licensed. Why? It's that regiment. The regiment is tough. It's just like the military. You think of this test like a boot camp. The people who make it through, they make the sacrifice. It's a sacrifice. You have to sacrifice time and money. And of course, work experience. But in the end, you might not see it at first with the struggle. See, a lot of people look at individuals, oh, I want to be just like that person. Might be going off tangent a little bit, but I'm giving you some life stories too. That you want to be like that person, but you don't know how that person got to where they got either. I guarantee they went through the struggle. They failed. And I always look at this word fail, okay? Not necessarily a bad thing. Failing can also be your best teacher because it's going to motivate you to go right back to that material and study it even better. I can tell you this, I would be a little sarcastic about it. I guess that's why they call it calculus two, because I took it twice. Got a D the first time, did it again, didn't understand it the first time, understood it the second time. I took calculus three times, didn't understand it at all. And it could also be how the instructor is teaching it, because some instructors, like if you go to the bigger colleges, they use calculus, static, they use them as weed out classes. Why? Because they want to cut the numbers of engineers down. And a lot of people, here's what they did. When they couldn't handle the math, where did they go? They went over there to business. And what happens when you go over there? Business gets saturated and they make it hard to get into the school of business. Not because it's hard, because it has a lot of students. You see, it's a numbers game out here. That's what it is. And with the FE exam, it's a numbers game as well. You can look at the pass rates, first time passers. Now, one of the reasons why some of the scores are low, because you could have some individuals like myself who've been out of school for a long time. And because I've been out of school for a long time, I forgot a lot of the material. Now, again, going over everything. Let's get back into the specifics. I'm going to share my screen again. I'm going to put the specifics right back up there. Okay, this is the examination that I'm going to take. Fundamentals. This right here is your best friend. And if you look at it closely and you do the problems and follow this outline, it can help you. Now, something else to tell you as well. For me, when I didn't pass the FE exam, it wasn't failing the same FE exam, because there are a number of individuals who failed the same one. I took 3 different ones because I thought one was going to be easier than the other, and it wasn't. Something to tell you, besides these specifications, do the exam that you feel the most comfortable with. Familiarization is very important, because sometimes, I'm going to say this, you may have to take it 2, 3 times, but you start to become familiar with it and you know where your weaknesses are. Once you know where your weaknesses are, you can go ahead and study the subjects a little longer when they're your weaker subjects. Yes, you study your strong subjects, but the weaker ones require a little bit more work. Again, if you're going to be taking the environmental, this is what you got to take. Just follow this specification. Let me go bring up the other ones. If you're going to be studying the mechanical, follow this one. This is going to be your best friend right here. Also, look at, I believe his name is Madison. Look at Genie Prep. Look at Farouk Direct Hub. Look at a lot of the videos. Look at a lot of the videos. Now, the good thing I like about Farouk's courses and Genie Prep's courses, unlike the top, I call them the top dollar ones out here. This is your civil, all your specifications, your civil specifications. The top dollar ones like PP to Pass and School of PE, they're very expensive. You get a lot of tools, but it doesn't mean you're going to pass the exam. But one big aspect about Genie Prep's courses and Farouk's courses, you buy them their lifetime. And you know what? Even when you pass the FE, always keep those courses. And always keep this, even though this says FE, you know why? You're going to need it for the PE. You're not finished. That's the thing. You just got over one hump when you passed the FE. But here comes the PE. You got to do a little bit more to get the PE. You have to verify your work experience. That means you have to go and get a bunch of references, at least 5, 2 that are non-professional related. But you still have to get those signatures. And then you have to get right back into the books because it's 80 questions on the PE as well. And even when you pass the PE, then you have to go out and do your PDHs to keep the PE. Then you have to pay money every 2 or 3 years to keep it renewed. Yeah, it's a racket. Don't get me wrong. It is a big racket. But in the end, if you follow the right procedures, look at the specifications, then you study 2 to 3 hours, get some good resources. And when you do your studying, study what you believe is going to be on the exam. Study the conceptual questions, work out problems with your calculator. This right here, if you're going to do math and some problems that require some calculations like vectors, integrals, the calculator will save you a lot of time. In fact, if you get most of the math right, you got to get about, in my humble opinion, you want to strive, if you're going to get a raw 70, it's 110 questions, so you got to get at least 77 right. But if you can get most of the math right, or even all of it, all engineering, economics, you're already, you think about it, you're just about there. And then the rest of it is going to come in other subjects. And now you're not going to, and that's another thing. Don't go in there and try to ace it because you're not going to ace it. It's too much time. Do what you know, and then the problems that you have flagged, go back and finish them. And see if you can, my portion of guessing is the process of elimination. That's the best guess. Everybody has this theory that it's either going to be B or C. No. Go back and use your best guess and don't second guess yourself. And there are people out there that will help you. Again, Direct Hub. He's emailed me back. I had somebody from Kansas channel email me back. The people out there that'll help you. And if you want to be successful with this exam, listen to people who've passed it. They're going to get you through. They know more of the tricks than I do because the information that I'm putting out, I looked at their tricks. I just added a little bit more of my spin in it. But when I go take the test, I'm going to have a better idea when I pass it. But in the meantime, just sit back, don't overthink anything, look at your specifications, learn some test taking strategies, and study what you believe is on the test. Don't overwork yourself. I believe a lot of us put too much stress on ourselves. If we don't get it one time, and I'm telling this to myself too, because I gave up on it. I don't want to see anybody give up on it. You make sure you conquer it. And sometimes it's going to take you 2 or 3 or even 4 times to conquer it, but you will eventually conquer it. Again, successful people, they go through the blood, sweat, and tears of failure to actually reach the top. Cowards, they get envious of the people who've already done the work because they don't do the work. They run. Don't be a coward. But in the end, the FE test, it's a standardized test. Look at your specifications. Now, there are other specifications out there for chemical, electrical, and other disciplines as well. I just gave you the ones for civil, environmental, and mechanical. Of course, industrials out there as well. Take the test that you are comfortable with. Don't take a test because you believe one is easier than the other. No, I tried that. Didn't work for me. Now, what I'm giving you is the don'ts. I'm going to give you the do's. But in the end, look at your specifications. Look at your handbook. Work out some problems. People out there that will help you. You can come to my channel. I'll give you some suggestions. I have the conceptual knowledge. If you're not the greatest theoretical knowledge, I'm not the greatest test taker. I'm going to give you some of my test taking tricks as well as I continue to learn. In the end, don't be afraid of the test and keep on learning. Fundamentals of engineering is a test, but it's just another stage in learning. It's to also help you get your PE license. But in the end, be successful. Take the test. And once you take the test, pass or fail, get right back on a horse, fall, and ride it again. Sometimes people run into different paths in life where they don't stay focused, but stay focused. No matter what you do on this exam, you give up, you run, it's just like running a mile. It'll be harder for you to continue to run that mile. But if you miss it a few times, it's much easier for you to correct everything. But again, repeat this for the last time. Read your specifications. Study what you believe is on the test. The specifications are a guide. They will help you in the long run, give you that direction. And that's it. That sums everything up on the FE examination specifications. If you like what I just presented, please comment, share, and subscribe. And if you're looking for some social, some news, and some political content, you check out my main channel, the 411 Talk Zone Radio Show channel on YouTube. And once I finish uploading all of my videos, after I record them, The uploads will go to my Twitter channel. Furthermore, since the QCIS channel is an educational channel, you will see that content like tonight's video is going right onto my LinkedIn page. Be sure you like, share, and subscribe to this channel as well, because I'm going to be giving you more and more information here on out on the FE examination. It's going to blend a lot of the STEM topics that I have already talked about. Again, when you deal with this exam, just make sure you take it seriously and study the right materials. But once again, thank you for listening and viewing this content on the QCIS channel. For on this channel, you get a daily dose of science, technology, engineering, and math. Till next time, my name is Leon Jones. You all have a wonderful and gracious evening.